and then he said this, and then he said that, and then, that was just like crazy because they all started talking at once and nobody knew who anyone was. Yeah, dialogue. Welcome to dialogue. Because dialogue is amazing and scary and everything all at once. Okay, so number one, I'm gonna put some of my favorite links in the post about it because why should I re-say what someone else has already said better? But I want to talk about dialogue in kind of a different way. First, one of the things that bothers me most about dialogue personally is when it feels inauthentic. When I read dialogue in a book and I cannot hear the character speaking for the structure, then it takes, so the structure is there to serve the reader, not to announce to the reader what's going on, okay? This is why books where you have, quote, this is happening, da 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 da, comma, end quote, said Jane, quote, well, I don't think so, da 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 da, comma, end quote, said Mark, quote, well, I think da 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 da, comma, end quote, said Jane. When it's just boom, 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 it reads like a Dick and Jane, and it gets old really fast. And things can read like that even with action beats. And so that's one of the things I really want to show is the difference between using an action beat like a Dick and Jane dialogue tag and using an action beat to avoid the need for a dialogue tag. Dialogue tags and action beats and all those things, their purpose is to inform the reader or remind the reader of who's speaking without announcing it. When we have to announce who's speaking in a situation that isn't something new has come up, it gets very old very fast. There's a lot of information out there that talks about how you shouldn't be replacing said with other words, just use said, and I agree. When said is appropriate, when you just have to say that someone said something and said is the best choice for that scene or that line or whatever, use it. There's nothing wrong with said. It's said at the end of every single line or even most of the lines, particularly at the end. I think it's really, really old, really, really fast. It draws you out of the story. It just kills the story because the life is gone. It's a form, dialogue tags are a form of telling instead of showing, okay? It took me a while to really catch this because I never really naturally used dialogue tags because I never liked them even as a kid. It bugged me when it was said at the end of every line because there are two primary dialogue tags that you see in writing where they should be used. You have said and asked because if there's a question mark at the end, you don't use said, you use asked, right? But you don't need just those things. You can have your character being active, doing things that are pertinent to the story without having to use said every other word. But when you use your dialogue tags and your action beats at the end of every sentence, you speak and then something tells you who just did it. And then you speak and someone tells you just who did it. And you speak. When you do that, it just kills the life from your story. And the same is true as if you always flip it, okay? Usually action first is preferable if you have to choose because we usually begin to act before we begin to speak. It took me a while to realize that, but I started watching people, and there are lots of exceptions. I'm not saying there aren't, but I've noticed that people begin to act before they begin to speak. It's like they start moving in the direction of their thoughts before they're able to articulate those thoughts. And so a very natural flow is to have them pick up the keys. I'm going to go to the store. Do you need anything? Instead of, I'm going to go to the store. You need anything? Jane picked up the keys and headed to the door. It's a much more natural flow for reading and action unless someone's looking for their keys, right? To tell what you're doing first, give us that scene, and then have the dialogue, okay?